Hello, listeners. How are you this week? It is great. It is great to be with you wherever you are, be day, night, whether you be gaming now or just, chilling out, kicking back. Why not? We are back on track, episode 74. I know there was a little mix up in the last couple of weeks with the numbers, but hey, what can you expect? Now, I'm going to get out of the way. The last time we had this returning guest on, I did this big, long intro. I expended all this energy. I exerted myself too much, I think. But I don't need to do that anymore because you know who this man is. You've used his guides. Yes, even you use Sony Pony. But look, I also know there's many of the listenership that have a foot in both camps coming into this next generation. I know a few of you have even pre-ordered the S. I believe for a few games. We might even get into that in a moment. But it is my pleasure today to welcome back Maka. He is now an MVP, I suppose. Well, even more than an MVP. He's now a Hall of Famer for Microsoft as well. So look, I don't know if we bow or what the correct terminology here is. Sir, perhaps is enough. But how are you today, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me. The introduction's always way too grand for just little old me.
Look, I don't know. I don't believe it. Why don't we start there if that's okay? Because we just talked for a second before we started, listeners, and Mac is like, oh, it's really not that exciting a story or whatever else. But I mean, it is sort of exciting, Mac, from a Sony point of view, because Sony don't acknowledge that it has gamers. It has a lot of gamers. It just doesn't acknowledge them, any of them, at any time. But it's wonderful to see
Yeah.
Microsoft doing that. It must be validating to a degree to receive recognition from them, I imagine.
It's it's a weird boat because it feels like there's sometimes a disconnect between Xbox marketing versus like the people who work on the features. It seems like the people who work in marketing love achievements, even if they don't always understand them. But it is also on the flip side of that, as an Xbox achievement hunter, a little bit frustrating that Xbox hasn't really updated the achievement system in a long, long time. And in many ways, it's actually steps behind the achievement system we had on 360. But yeah, I guess to focus on the bright side, I received the Xbox Hall of Fame award, and it kind of came in a box, came with a trophy and a little bit of a sweater. But Xbox is running like a Hall of Famer contest. If you go to xbox.com/HOF, basically they're giving away like 8 Series X consoles, an award, and a bunch of sweaters. They're giving away 8 per country that's eligible. And you can win one by like getting the most gamer score in the month of like October, getting the most achievements. You can have the most gamer score since the Xbox One released, so like for the last like 7 years or so. So there's a couple different ways you can get like a fast lap in Forza, play Game Pass games. But yeah, they are rewarding some achievement hunters, some hardcore gamer score people, and also a couple of some newbies who might be joining the hobby for the first time, but they're going to push for it really, really hard. So it is exciting. I always love when Microsoft has anything to say about gamerscore, whether it's they're releasing games with gold and mentioning that there's 3,000 gamerscore you can get, or a contest like this where they're like rewarding someone like me or a friend or friends of mine who do go after gamerscore. But it is still frustrating to see that we don't have like a platinum trophy equivalent on the Xbox. It's something I've been vocal about and pushing for years, and it just seems like that message doesn't always get across. And who knows, maybe this will be the straw that broke the camel's back. Me complaining here right now today. We'll put that in motion.
I like it. I like it. So basically, you're telling me here, Maka, that Phil Spencer himself didn't rock up at your door to hand you this award.
No, they actually didn't even make me sign for the package, so it could have been swiftly stolen from my porch.
Well, look, you say that, but look, I'm just looking at some pictures here. The hoodie's pretty cool. It is
It is, it
embroidered as
is.
well with your name. So that's a nice touch. I like
Yeah, so the hoodie's cool, even though they sent the wrong size.
that.
And then the jacket is the one that has my gamer tag on the back. Also very cool. Look, I'm very happy I got the award, and I wrote the post I wrote on Twitter about it. It's super cool. But it does unfortunately come with a little bit of frustration that I wish the people working on features cared as much about his achievements as the marketing people did sometimes. But instead of achievement updates, we get a bunch of like dashboard updates that like nobody's using. But maybe one day.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, I suppose, because as you know from last time, I'm a bit of a Sony. Well, look, I'm not going to say Sony pony because I'd be lying there, but I'm maybe a Sony enthusiast, I suppose is the correct word there,
Of course.
Maka. I enjoy the platinum, or too many perhaps, or whatever. But it's interesting because there's so many differences between the trophy system and the achievement system. And last time you came on, you actually said that exact thing, that you wish there was some sort of equivalent of a platinum trophy on the Xbox. Sort of, a culmination of the list, I suppose. Now, what is funny about me is that I've, in the last month or so, but building this way, I've decided to move most of my gaming across to the Xbox. One of the things that I really enjoy, now I'm not a completionist, I know you are somewhat of a completionist. One of the things I enjoy is actually not having that final platinum trophy. So I feel, like I can do as much as I can do or want to do. And then I have no problem sort of leaving it, I suppose, because I know that getting that one last achievement or those last two ridiculous multiplayer grinds, it's not going to unlock any more fancy bling for me. So I don't know. I see it perhaps the other way. You obviously don't consider this.
No, I mean, there's pluses and minuses to both systems, of course. It's hard not to be jealous of a platinum system. Like, so I don't game too much on my PlayStation. I'll play the exclusives and have it plugged in every once in a while, play some Fall Guys on there or whatever it is. But I've heard there have been some. So this is gonna get like super technical and super nerdy, but I know we got the audience for it. So
That's right.
PlayStation has had the Platinum Trophy for a while, and I know for a fact that a lot of the hardcore kind of trophy community has been a little bit upset about the fact that like these super easy games have been coming out every week, and all of them have like a 4 stack, and it's essentially devalued the trophy system to some degree. Some people probably love it, some people probably hate it. There's probably an ongoing war that people don't even realize is there. But something similar has happened in the Xbox community where gamer score used to kind of mean something. It never really meant anything real, but you could look at someone's gamer tag and kind of get a sense of how much of an achievement hunter there was. There was like this sense of community. If someone else had high gamer score, the likelihood that they also played Hannah Montana, the movie, the game, like you did, was high, and you could kind of share these moments between each other. Whereas now you could probably, if you really wanted to, get to 500,000 gamer score in like a month, if you really wanted to. And it's kind of a shame because like gamer score doesn't really mean anything. When the average Xbox gamer sees gamer score, that doesn't hold a certain amount of value. So when you make gamer score inaccessible to the average gamer, unfortunately the community shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And I feel unfortunate to say that I feel like the achievement community is probably the smallest it's been of all time, maybe. And it's just so hardcore that I wish it could be a hobby that like more people enjoy. And the reality is, if you're playing games like The Avengers or whatever games you're playing, the chances are that you have even a reasonably high gamer score are so tremendously low that it'll never be a hobby that you enjoy. And unfortunately, I think it's because some of these easy games are coming out. And back in the day, easy games were easy games, but most of them were decent.
Mhm.
Now they are, and I will say this without even a flinch, most of them are pure garbage trash that aren't even worth your time if they were free. Now, I play them just like everyone else, don't get me wrong, but they are awful, awful games that, unfortunately, the only reason anyone's buying them is for gamerscore. And I feel like these companies are exploiting that. And I feel like the result is the community is slowly but surely dying. And I think some of the hardcores who are just after the numbers kind of put their blinders on and ignore the issue. Whereas I think the achievement system needs to be like pretty much completely reinvented from the ground up. And I wouldn't be surprised if some PlayStation people had the same thing to say about some of these not so great games giving out 4 platinum trophies at a time.
Well, look, the great thing about PlayStation gamers, Maka, they love to whinge. And of course, that argument has been floating around on this side for ages. But look, as hard as it is on the Xbox side, you have to remember on the PlayStation side, most of these games you play 6 to 8 times as well across all these regional variants.
Yep.
So it's I mean, one of the great things about Microsoft, I know there's some stacks on the PC, but by and large, a lot of these games you're talking about, you only have to play once. You're not stacking around the Asian, Hong Kong, Korean, American store
Right.
as well. And it's funny, actually. I'll give them a little bit of a plug here. I dropped in because I know no one in the Xbox world, Maka. Well, I know you are loosely, I suppose now, but I know no one, which is wonderful for me because I know way too many bastards on the PlayStation now. So appearing there is wonderful because I don't get distracted. There's nothing going on. But as a result, I don't know a lot of these wonderful titles that you have. Now, I just said, obviously, you don't have all these regional stacks, but there are a ton of these sort of spam games that you get on Xbox that we haven't got yet on PlayStation and perhaps never will. And so I dropped into this Real Gamer Score podcast. They're a fellow Australian podcast, I believe, up in the north. And they're pretty hardcore, Maka. I'm not going to lie. Some of
Yeah.
those are really, I don't know if you know them. They're pretty full on dudes or whatever else. But it's been an education, and I don't know again because your footing's more in the Xbox. But it's been an education to me because there's so many games in the last 4 years that I've missed out on, shorter games, and some of them are garbage, perhaps most, but not all, that have never come across to the PlayStation. So in a way, it's exciting for me too, I suppose. I don't know
Sure.
I mean, I don't know how closely you follow what moves across, so perhaps you don't consider that as well.
So I thought I did follow them pretty closely, and from what I know, the vast majority of the awful games on the Xbox are on the PlayStation, offering platinum trophies and Vita trophies and UK Vita trophies and European Vita trophies. So all the games from Radalaika I
Yeah.
know do go over to PlayStation. We got a couple new bloods that offer gamer score in 5-minute chunks on the Xbox, but I thought a fair bit of them were also trying to hit the PlayStation. So it'd be interesting to actually look at what is and what isn't on both.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that most of them were kind of on both. And I just want to make my position clear. Look, I like Gamerscore as much as the next guy or girl. I will cover a game when I can get 1,000 Gamerscore in Don't Starve on PC in 8 minutes. I am there. The problem for me is when companies are exploiting easy Gamerscore as a marketing tactic, and it's the only reason people are buying their game. Don't Starve is probably a good game. People like that. People like the game. They play the game. There's a full game there. But Radalaika seems to kind of take the quick road there, and they make you play about 5 to 10% of their game for the gamer score, which I'm not a fan of because they're just sucking the gamer score community dry for something that they know they want. And when I look at the whole situation, as a whole, I just want the gamer score and achievement and trophy community, for that matter, to be as big as possible and as healthy as possible.
Yes.
And when I take a step back and look away from my addiction to gamer score and achievements, I realize that for achievements and trophies and everything to be as successful as possible, they need to be accessible to a bigger audience than they currently are. The average gamer you will never convince the average gamer to spend $5 on a game that was made on a weekend by a high school student just so they can get some easy gamer score. We need to have, better achievement lists, more fun achievement lists in some normal titles. And I think the way to get there is to unfortunately stop this massacre of the achievement system. But yeah, I just want the best for the communities, and I want them to grow and to flourish, and for people to care about achievements, and for those the good times to come back.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't think the way we're trending is that these communities are getting smaller and smaller. At least on the Xbox side, I don't know how the trophy community is doing, if it's getting bigger or smaller, but I've heard that a lot of people have quit as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I'm by no means trying to bait you, And there is actually, look, I want to go down this line slightly. I know you probably don't want to talk about your guides because you do that all day, but last time you were on a year ago or so, you were already moving in this direction. And having looked at your channel recently, you've definitely moved further in this direction, and it makes sense having you, echoed that viewpoint there. But are you actively now, avoiding creating guides for these sort of shovelware games, these 5-minute games? Is that your, I suppose, approach to dealing with them? Or
I never sat down and decided one day that I was not going to cover these games, but I have thought about it enough to realize that I cannot, with a good conscience, recommend that people spend their hard-earned money on some of these games. I play these games, so don't get me wrong. Like, I go out of my way to put myself through this torture, but I cannot, with a good conscience, recommend that people are dropping their money on these. Some of these games are just awful. I like some of them could be used to interrogate terrorists, forcing them to play these games until they confess to their war crimes. These games are just that bad, unfortunately. And I can't go out and recommend people buy these games and follow a guide to get a quick gamer score because unfortunately I'm rewarding this behavior. Now, I do stream the games. We have some fun, dunking on how bad these games are and having a good time, whatever. We hang out, we chill out, and it's a good time all around. But on top of all of this, as the problem's been getting worse and worse, there have been less and less people who care about these games. And at the end of the day, when I make a guide, the guide has to be, I don't know, I guess worth my time or worth an audience. And for some of these games, when they're $10 and they take 5 minutes and they look like they were made by, a student or whatever, not that that's necessarily bad, but someone who's not an experienced game maker, the amount of people who want to put themselves through that torture for $10 to get easy gamer score, it's not a lot of people.
Mm.
So it's hard to justify making a guide for a game that I don't want people to spend money on, and then also knowing that the amount of people who would spend that money is just not there. So when you kind of put everything together, I know it's like a negative and it might sound like, I'm kind of like forcing the problem on myself, but I've not actively tried to stop covering them. But at this point on Xbox, there's about 3 to 4 per week, and they're just not good games, and I can't recommend them. And I've been actively, you know, trying to be a proponent of looking at things a different way and to try to get this gamer score system changed to some capacity.
Mm, Yeah, look, I totally agree, and I mean, it's about balance, obviously. I mean, we see exactly the same thing in the trophy hunting community, and look, many of the Patreons of this show, even though this is a hugely, Sony Pony trophy whore type show, like myself here, many of them, they advocate the same position that you do, Maka. They don't indulge in the opulence that I tend to do in these 5-minute thrills or whatever else. But we'll leave that there because I think that's a hole that we could perhaps get stuck into. But look, I do want to ask you though about we touched on briefly the Hall of Fame and the requirements or whatever you can get here for most achievements, all this sort of stuff. One of the things, as you alluded to here, is you can score a huge amount of gamer score in a month now or something, and there is one of these things here that will reward the person from the different countries that earns the most gamer score in a period of a couple of weeks or whatever else, which is basically just who can throw the most money, or which I didn't realize happens, and I don't want to open the door on comments here, so don't worry. But also game sharing, which is obviously, unfortunately, a plight on the Xbox as well as the PlayStation, although perhaps maybe not to the same degree. So we won't touch that. I don't want to drag you down there. But, it really is just about that. And now, I don't know your thoughts on this, but it's been on the back of my mind for a long time with Sony, is that they've never acknowledged the people, and I tread carefully here, listeners, but not too carefully, because if you know me, I tend to buy a lot of games. They never acknowledge the people that spend a shitload of money on the store over years, and it seems like this is what Microsoft have done here as well. They're rewarding the players, which, yes, in turn implies they may be spending a lot, but Maka and I have been around the block, as you have, listeners. That does not necessarily always prove true. But there must be people here, Maka, on the Xbox side that are basically gaming whales, for want of a better term, that are buying a huge amount of games. It was interesting to me that there isn't a kickback here for that sort of a thing as well. I don't know how you feel about that, or if you want to comment on that.
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there. I have a couple friends who hit me up and they were like, "Yo, Mac, I'm gonna make a run at this. We're gonna get a free console. I'm gonna put up 200,000, blah blah blah." And they also thought, well, what about those people who game share and all that stuff? And I said, that's not who you have to worry about. What you have to worry about is a guy who already owns, or girl who owns all these games already, who's making a new account to start at 0 gamer score, and him and 3 of his friends are going to all share this account and game 24 hours a day playing all of these garbage games that they already have. And when they put up 400,000 gamer score in 3 weeks, you have absolutely no chance.
Mm.
I think that's the again, I'm not encouraging people to cheat, and maybe look, people are smart enough to have figured that all out by themselves, I'm sure.
There's someone out there with their notebook going, shit, he's onto us.
Yeah. So I don't think game sharing is a problem. I think it's someone who is already an experienced gamer score person who is going to make a new account and share an account with their friends, just to kind of sweep the competition. I think that's kind of the bigger issue. But as for the quote unquote whales, and I wouldn't even consider myself one, as I'm in a privileged position to get a lot of what I get for free. But on Xbox, there is the Microsoft reward system, which I think does a very good job at rewarding people who spend a lot of money or time on the console already. And as long as you're paying attention, you're getting probably $1 to $2, maybe even $300 back a year from Microsoft rewards. You just gotta open those eyes, go into that app every couple of days, kind of focus on some of the things that they're wanting you to do. But if, like, I don't know, I bought Tony Hawk or some other game not that long ago. I went into the Microsoft rewards page, and I noticed it said, like, if you buy a new game this week, we'll give you 3,000 points. And all I had to do was click on it, and I got like $3 worth of points. And I didn't really do anything I would have normally done. So, like, I don't think as a business strategy, Xbox can give the people who spend a lot of money like free Xboxes. I think they actually tried to do it with the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Back in the day. They did. But I like that they're rewarding achievement people, but at the same time, like, I got the Hall of Fame award, and I've got comments that are like, hey, I have more gamer score than you. Why didn't I get a trophy? And there's kind of more to it, I'm sure, and there's the whole competition they're trying to promote. But on the Xbox side, at least, and there's probably some kind of Sony equivalent, we do have Microsoft rewards, which is pretty good. If you're good with looking at the sales, you can get a lot of the Easy Gamer Score games on sale. Every few weeks there's a rotating list of easy games you can buy for half price. Yeah, look, I know it can be frustrating to, like, spend a lot of money and not feel like the company you're spending a lot of money on cares about you. But it's unfortunately business as usual for a lot of these companies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm by no means crying poor. It's funny you mentioned that free console. For a long time, it's been in the back of my mind that, I mean, the console is an access, gateway basically to their digital store, especially, and we're going to go a moment to the new systems if we can, but especially now with the digital console. And I mean, not to sidetrack us, but the only dealings I ever had really with Sony was at one point my account got locked because, Maka, I probably had too much to drink and I put the password in wrong multiple times or something. But, anyway, so I rang them and it was like a Friday night. And because most of my stuff is digital, I couldn't access it. And the guy's like, I don't know where he was in the world, but he's like, look, there's nothing we can do about it now. You'll have to wait until Monday or whatever else. And I was like, well, that's just life. That's fine. It's my fault. Within 5 minutes, I had a phone call back from a higher up who's like, no, not a problem, sir. Not a problem, Mr. Anderson. We'll sort that out for you straight away. And in the back of my mind was like, well, I wonder if they just did the quick maths on how much I was likely to blast away that weekend on games.
Yeah.
And therefore it was worthwhile to do. But look, that's a very cynical and jaded attitude. I'm not sure if that really does happen, although it would not surprise me at all. But let's move across, if we can, to the new consoles. Tell me, as an Xbox fanboy, deeply immersed in the ecosystem, how was it like for you the day before pre-orders go live and the announcement of Bethesda comes out? How was that?
Yes. Oddly enough, I'm not much of an RPG guy, so that's kind of the irony of it all. But no, that was a huge announcement. People were expecting, like, Warner Brothers, which would have also been huge, but Bethesda is definitely significantly huger. When I first saw it, it was mostly a lot of questions. It was like, what does this mean? Does this mean, like, Elder Scrolls 6 is an Xbox exclusive? Does this mean, like, Doom Eternal's getting added to Game Pass today? Like, does this mean that Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo are no longer going to PS5, even though they had those exclusive deals? I had a lot of questions, and I read a lot of articles which very cleverly avoided those questions. Rightfully so, because I guess there's a lot of, business dealings that have to happen before they can officially say these things. I guess Bethesda and Zenimax are allowed to just run themselves however they want until the deal is finalized, which there's still a little bit of time to go.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I love the idea of like acquiring exclusives to fight console to console, but I also feel like, Sony does it and Xbox does it, and it's kind of like all is fair in love and war, or whatever
Mhm.
that saying is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that means that stuff like this has to happen for both of these companies to stay competitive. And it is in our best interest as gamers for both of these companies to be successful pretty much equally, because when they're both successful, it means they're both trying,
Mhm.
and it's best for us as customers. But no, it was a huge deal. Obviously, $7.8 billion is quite a bit of money. But it's an exciting time because you look at it as a strategy, and right now Game Pass is at 15 million people, and Phil convinced Satya to put that money where his mouth is, and they bought this. And if this was their goal to see like, hey, if we're at 15 million and we buy Bethesda, and if we reach 25 million people, that's 10 million extra people, $15 a month, $2 billion a year, we'll get our money back within 5 years. And if this is successful, then maybe we'll buy Warner Brothers, maybe we'll buy Sega, maybe we'll buy Konami,
Mhm.
or whoever it is. And it's interesting because I feel like this is very much a big test run. And if it and you may not agree, or maybe you do, but I actually think 7.8 billion for Bethesda was a really good deal.
Mhm.
I would have assumed the price would have been a lot higher for them, especially a few years ago before the fiasco of Fallout 76 and Wolfenstein Youngbloods, and a lot of their games haven't been doing great lately. But it's a big deal. I know that Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop are still going to remain timed exclusives on PS5 as a part of the, honoring the contracts that were already there. I know a lot of the um, backlog of games is going to hit Game Pass. I know Doom Eternal is hitting Game Pass on October 1st, and I'm sure all the other things will slowly slide in after that. I know a lot of the Bethesda games will be hitting Game Pass day one, which for Game Pass just adds more value after they acquired all EA Play games are now in Game Pass. Obviously, Xbox's big players is Game Pass. And they're almost, Sony and Xbox are almost fighting different fights.
Mhm.
People think it's about the console sales, and newsflash, both of these companies probably don't make money on the consoles. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they sell the consoles at a loss in order to get people to start buying these games, and that's how they make their money back slowly over time, selling exclusives, selling subscriptions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Microsoft doesn't care if you buy a console. They care if you buy Game Pass. If you play on your PC, that's fine. If maybe down the line you buy Game Pass for Nintendo Switch and that's how you're playing Bethesda games, they don't care. They just want your money. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think a lot of people get caught up with whether or not, like, oh, are they going to, which console sold more? They're not, that's not the metric that they're grading the company on at Xbox. Maybe it is at Sony, maybe it isn't. But in terms of Xbox, they don't really care how many consoles they sell. Obviously, the more the better.
Mhm.
But if everyone just stays on Xbox One and buys Game Pass, or if everyone moves to the PC and buys Game Pass, it's all money to them. And, people keep asking about future Bethesda games on other platforms, and they have very vaguely said we're going to keep that door open. We want as many players on as many screens to be able to play Bethesda games in the future. But I think a lot of people have been interpreting that as, oh, that means all the games are going to come to PlayStation, they're going to go to Switch, we'll see them on PC, yada yada yada. And the way I've been interpreting that is you will probably see these games hitting Game Pass on day one, which includes both the Xbox console and the PC. It will also include mobile through xCloud or cloud gaming. So you'll have everyone on a phone some of these games will probably get put onto the Switch,
Mm.
and they will only, in my opinion, they will only come to the PlayStation if PlayStation in some way allows you to log into Xbox Live or some form of Xbox account in order to play them. So that's what I see in the future. And they're kind of leaving these statements vague and open. But to me, it means they will come to PlayStation if PlayStation does something for us in return. And I think that'll be some form of like logging in to Xbox, or I don't know if that means like an app on PlayStation that allows you to, some kind of Bethesda net where it's actually tied to Xbox, or
Mhm.
it'll be interesting down the line for sure. But that's kind of how I interpret the deal. It's just the long play at Game Pass sales. If Game Pass can go up enough to prove that it is a valuable strategy, then they'll acquire more studios. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. In the future, yeah, that's pretty much how I look at it. Again, I'm not always right, but I try my best to think about these things and do as much research as I can before I open my big mouth.
Yeah, I like that. And I think, I mean, from a totally selfish point of view, Maka, obviously the PS5, pre-orders launching so quickly, and it was crazy. I know it was crazy in America, Canada. It was more than crazy in Australia to get one, almost impossible. And then, I thought, well, at least the Xbox, particularly in Australia, it's perhaps not as taken up as the PlayStation has been in previous times. So it'll be a bit easier to pre-order one at least. And then to get that news, which literally dropped the night before the pre-orders launched here, 8 hours before, just basically wiped out any chance of getting a pre-order easily in this country, I think. So on a selfish point, it was disappointing, I suppose. But
Yeah.
on a serious point, though, for me, it was really eye-opening, because one of the things that I've liked about Microsoft and Xbox in particular over the last few years is that, and admittedly, yes, up until now, I played predominantly on PlayStation, but I've been very observant, is I really like that the team has doubled down on what they're doing. They haven't second-guessed themselves. They've gone for studios. They're setting up studios. They're really, they're following the subscription method. They're not backing down, but a $7.5 billion US dollar deal doesn't come from them. That comes from the very top of Microsoft, because as much money as that company has, no one's spending $7.5 billion without authority from the top. And it was really encouraging to see that and again, a company worth $1 trillion market cap, it's small change perhaps, but it's still significant for me to see that the company is definitely standing behind them. And, as you say, it's a trial or whatever else. And yes, they have the money to make that trial. And there was a bit of diggling or niggling, I suppose, from Sony fans, many Sony fans, that, Bethesda, was taken this way, I suppose, or something. But the reality is that Sony couldn't make that deal. Whatever you think, that would have been a massive, massive draw on their funds at this time. Now, it's not to say that Sony won't cleverly buy other studios for a fraction of the price, which I think, may happen if they feel they need to. But it's interesting for me to see that Microsoft is firm, and perhaps you already know this because you've been there for so long, but to see how firmly the whole company is standing behind this approach and endeavor. So I think that's very exciting as well.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is, if this goes okay, I think the next acquisition for Xbox would be Warner Brothers. And a lot of people are super excited about Warner Brothers. Oh man, they made the Batman games, they made the Lord of the Rings games, and oh, it's going to be so lit when they come to Xbox. And one thing to keep in mind about if Warner Brothers does ever happen is that with Warner Brothers, you don't acquire the license to make Batman games, and you don't acquire the license to make Lord of the Rings games. You do acquire Mortal Kombat, which is great, but you got to realize that a lot of Warner Brothers studios are known for their Batman games, or Gotham Knights, or Suicide Squad, et cetera, in the future. And that doesn't necessarily come with Warner Brothers. So there might be a strategic play there for Xbox to keep waiting for Warner Brothers until they do get Gotham Knights out and Suicide Squad's kind of close. Maybe make it a day one Game Pass game if it's tracking well, and then you acquire them and start letting them work on other projects. Who knows? But I think what Xbox is trying to do is maybe acquire Bethesda. Obviously, they did. Maybe after that, they're going to acquire someone large, but not crazy large. We're not talking EA or Take-Two or Ubisoft. We're talking someone like Warner Brothers, and I think maybe Sony might go after Square Enix. That would be a pretty normal partnership. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that happened. But I think Xbox's goal is eventually to try to get into a partnership with Nintendo and try to get Game Pass as an app on Nintendo, on the Switch, and let Nintendo handle like the mobile market, and then just let Nintendo people, uh, you know, buy Game Pass, and then maybe you're putting these games on PlayStation, but every time anyone on PlayStation buys this game, they're giving $15 to Microsoft, which is the amount they'd pay for Game Pass anyways. So yeah, I think
Mm,
there's definitely a long play here, which is, obvious, but it
mm,
is good to know that, these decisions are being supported by the higher ups, because there was a shaky time like about 3 or 4 years ago where they canceled Scalebound, they opened up Mixer, and it was like, is it possible that Xbox, like Microsoft, is just going to kill Xbox? Like, there was a moment in time where I thought it was legitimately possible that Xbox, I was just going to wake up one day and Xbox was going to just be canceled, just period.
mm, mm,
But obviously now it's not.
mm.
And I think it's because Game Pass is obviously working out for them.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, there's something I want to pick up there, but before we do, you mentioned Square Enix. Like everybody does, when you start throwing around numbers that are so big that you can't even comprehend, you're like, well, why not just spend a bit more? And my first thought was, I wonder what Square's worth, about 2 billion-ish. They could easily pick it up for 2.5, I feel. What's that, Maka? Afternoon's work for them. And I
Yeah,
thought this would be amazing for you. It would be a dreadful
sure.
purchase because you hate JRPG. I'm sure if you don't like RPG, you're not
Not the biggest fan,
gonna.
no.
But
I mean, I'll dabble.
yeah, but I mean, they've done a great job of moving many of the Final Fantasy games across now. I mean, to steal 16 from Sony would be wonderful, as a timed exclusive, of course. But the big thing for me would be, of course, the one travesty so far is that they do not have Final Fantasy 14, which again would not interest you at all, I'm sure. But perhaps a
I have
purchase there.
friends who
Yes,
talk
yeah.
about it.
They would love it, I'm sure. But look, what I want to ask you about, because you opened the door on it slightly, and it's a question that I hear mumbled around from a lot of different guests, is that they feel that this may be the last Xbox console, this new Series X. Do you feel this way? Do you think perhaps Microsoft, with their
um,
cloud and everything else, are moving away from having said that, that lovely story about
yeah,
waking
yeah,
up?
yeah. I mean, so I it's gonna come, you're not gonna like this, but it'll come down to semantics. Define the word console.
Yes. Well, look, I don't consider playing Fallout on my fridge via xCloud a console. So
Right. So I think we've seen this more and more. The lines between what is a computer and what is a Xbox Series X is very, very blurred, more than ever, and it'll continue along that track. There will be a point where you'll be able to buy a quote unquote pre-made PC that will run Game Pass games, and maybe they'll slap an Xbox logo on it and call it the Xbox whatever. Do I think there is a future where you can only play Xbox games through a internet connection by streaming them? No. So that should answer that question, hopefully. There may not be a future console, but there will be plenty of ways to play these games not by streaming them in the future. But at the end of the day, again, it's just semantics. It's just the definition. What is a console? What is a console generation? Uh, I don't know if either answer, whether it be yes or no, really means anything. Same for PlayStation, by the way. I don't know if a PlayStation 6 really means anything.
yeah, no. Of course, I agree with you. I mean, it's just an interesting speculation. I think I like. Now, look, friends at the Loot Bros, they've been fascinated. Now, I'm sure you picked up on this article. I tread here carefully because IGN reported on it, but then they also backtracked on it once they did a bit more fact checking, and they can't say definitively other than it did happen to a small degree, but much less than they perhaps first thought. But the naming conventions of the Xbox is, like for a PlayStation gamer, it can be confusing. Maka, you have a Series X as a
Sure.
there's a lot going on here, and there was, potentially reported, although it may be a bit clickbaity, that perhaps people bought the wrong Xbox on the pre-order because they were confused by the name.
Sure.
Probably PlayStation gamers, I imagine. But what do you think of that? Do you
Sure.
think there's any validity to the naming, that perhaps it
Yeah.
needs to be streamlined?
So I've heard from a lot of people like, oh, if I had a word with the Xbox marketing team with these naming conventions, blah, 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 blah. And to that, what I say is the Xbox One X is discontinued. You can't buy it anymore. So what is there to be confused about when you physically cannot buy the wrong console unless it is stocked in a warehouse at Amazon and blah, blah, like what happened. Now, what happened with the Xbox One X news articles where they kept saying Xbox One X sales surged by 700%. So the Xbox One X was discontinued. No one was buying it. So a 700 multiple of 1 is still not a lot. So that's kind of my argument is A, they weren't selling a lot of them, so any percentage increase, is going to be a big number just off the fact that the base number is not a lot. Number 2, it is no surprise to people that there are people who try to set up bots to buy consoles for them so that they can then go and turn a profit on these consoles. It would not be surprising to me if some people's bots malfunctioned and bought a couple hundred Xbox One X's on Amazon.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And last but not,
I didn't consider that.
Yeah, it is a thing. People don't talk about it because they don't want to like encourage the whole bot market, blah blah blah. But it's a reality that some of these consoles were snatched up by bots, including the wrong one. And last but not least, you can't buy. You literally cannot buy the old consoles once the new ones come out. Or you can't buy a 1X when the Series S comes out because it's literally replacing it. So, it's kind of like the iPhone. You got the 12 and the 12 Max and the 12 Plus Max, and it's super confusing. But at the end of the day, when you go to the Apple Store, you have a choice of 2 or 3. And whether you have an 11 Max or an 11G or an 11 Pro, it doesn't really matter because when you're in the market for a new one, all those options, all the old ones don't really matter. I agree that the name's dumb. Like Series X and Series S and who knows what will be in the future. They didn't set themselves up for success. It doesn't roll off the tongue. It's kind of a stupid name. And I agree with all those points. But when I saw that IGN article about confused grandmas around the world accidentally buy Xbox One X's, my eyes roll to the back of my head so far they do a 360.
Well, in their defense, and of course I'm not going to defend IGN, but in their defense, they did come out later on and basically refer, as you said, that perhaps the numbers weren't quite what they thought. But I take the point. Now, I want to move a little bit to streaming here. We didn't talk about this beforehand, so if this is not something you want to comment on, then we can move on. That's not a problem. But you mentioned Mixer. Now, Mixer, of course, Microsoft shut down recently or whatever else. I know that you're streaming on Twitch. Were you on Mixer at all, or were you sort of on Twitch the whole time through this?
I tried my hand at Mixer. I wished the best for Mixer. But at the end of the day, Mixer shut down, and when it did, the only question I had was why not sooner?
Oh, okay.
I think Mixer was a lot of money went into Mixer. I think this is something I used to say 4 or 5 years ago, or I think 2016 would have been when Mixer started, back when it was Beam.pro. But Mixer, to me, was always Microsoft's way of investing into cloud gaming, putting money into R&D, but also having a product that could potentially turn a profit through that R&D. It's very hard to go to your boss and say, hey, I want to spend the next 4 years researching how we can get games to play on phones. It's a lot easier to say, hey, I want to launch a competitor to Twitch, which is worth $500 billion or whatever it is. I want to make a competitor to Twitch, and we're going to also develop all these technologies that allow low latency streaming and, all these other things. On Mixer, you were able to control the game through a controller that was on screen. There was co-streaming and all these other features that kind of ran behind the scenes if you weren't really paying attention. But all of those technologies are now in cloud gaming. And I think initially what happened was Mixer was made for a way to spend money on R&D for cloud gaming. And maybe, just maybe by happy coincidence, we would make money on Mixer, and Mixer lost a lot of money. Probably, I can't imagine how much money, tens if not hundreds of millions. But at the end of the day, they walked away with a lot of tech that they currently use for cloud gaming, and cloud gaming was a big push for them, and still is. Now, as for Mixer, I did not really stream on Mixer. I streamed occasionally. It would mostly be when I was streaming for Xbox Canada or other things like that. And I liked the platform in a lot of ways. It did a lot of cool, unique things, and I really liked a lot of the systems it introduced. But Twitch ripped it off pretty quick and pretty fast. And then Mixer was built on innovation. And as soon as Twitch got all those same features, it lost the innovation. And then they just stopped innovating. And then Twitch started innovating. And there also became a time where there was a couple big moments for Mixer, when it was like Microsoft's E3 only on Mixer. And then Mixer didn't work for anyone who went on it. You only get one chance at a first impression. And a lot of people's first impression was ruined, unfortunately, by Mixer not working in very key moments. So I think that was an unfortunate dagger for Mixer. As for myself, I tried Mixer a few times. I liked some of the features it had back when those features weren't available anywhere else. But I had viewers on Twitch. I felt like I had started a community. I'd built friendships and everything with people there. And I felt that it was disingenuous to switch platforms just because Mixer was an Xbox Microsoft platform. I didn't think it did enough to convince me to try to take my audience on the go and move it to a different platform. So I decided to invoke my loyalty clause, and I stayed with good old Twitch, which I don't necessarily have the best relationship with. But yeah, I stream when I can, when I feel like it, when there's something to stream over on Twitch.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, I want to ask you, I know that, look, I don't want to dig into that because I know that you're on partner track and and everything else there. So,
No, not anymore.
Well,
I've applied.
Maka, everybody
I've
applies
applied,
once or twice. You know that.
Or 4 or 5 times. Yeah.
Look, it's good that you can laugh about it, though. I think that's healthy. But we understand how it is. But what I wanted to ask you about streaming, because as you said, you do it in your time when you feel like it a bit. You're not a regular every day of the week type streamer. But I had on recently a musician, and because I don't stream, I don't know a lot about it, and he's actually a partner, a Twitch streaming guitarist and singer, Australian, Chris Miller, and it was wonderful for me to meet him and to talk to him. Now, he has a regular job, obviously, during the day, but this is his passion, and he loves it and stuff, and we were talking about what he does on the channel, and does he see it as a performance as opposed to live performing in gigs? And obviously playing an instrument, it is a performance, but it had me thinking about gamers that stream. When you stream, do you see that you're sort of performing as well? I know it's a strange
absolutely, 100%. 100%. Like, no one, look, and anyone who says they're not performing to some capacity is lying. No one sits there at, playing a game, gets a headshot, and just explodes into like, yeah, let's go, yeah, and then like no one does that in real life. Let's be honest. Like, obviously there's hype moments in a game. You get excited with your friends in a party chat, but there is an essence. I'm sure some people perform more than others, and some people have a really laid back, chill stream where they don't feel like they're performing. But I'll say that I can stream for 3 to 4 hours. It's kind of my limit. Whereas where I'm just gaming normally, just me in my office doing whatever I feel like, I can play for 6, 8, sometimes 10 hours, and it's just not as draining. So I think that's the best way to put it, is streaming takes a lot more of your energy out of you. And I think by definition, when you're putting more energy into something, it is a bit of a performance. That's how I would probably explain it. I think most Twitch streamers would agree that there is some level of performance to it. I don't think sometimes performance, I think, has like a bad connotation to it, like it's fake or disingenuous. I just think you're putting in an effort to make sure that the people who are watching you are having a good time, and that they feel as excited and happy as you do to be there. And whether you call that a performance or you just call that like trying to, be a good streamer, it's kind of up to you. But yeah, there's definitely some level of like, extraness to it. Even right now, right here, like if we were just having a conversation in a party chat, there is no way either of us would be this excited to be here.
It's so funny you
Um,
bring that up because, look, I love people, usually from another room at a good distance or whatever else, but, people are valid, of course. But I don't participate in party chats if I can help it online because, I've just had enough of people after the day, usually. I just like to game in quiet or music or whatever. And just recently, well, not recently, a few months ago, I dropped into a party or something that had a few listeners, and they're like, "Oh, you're just like nothing like you are on the show." And I was like, "Yes, I know." So it's so funny that you mentioned
Yeah.
that, but it's true. Like they're like, "Oh, you're so focused, you're so full. Sometimes you're even funny on there, And I'm like, "Well, it's fleeting." So, but it is true, isn't it? But I think you're right. I think elements of performance are fun, but it's tiring or whatever else, Why entertain other people, It's us that matter, I think. But look, let's. I'm conscious of the time. I want to move across to some of the games that you've been playing, if we can. And well, look, I'll open it up to you if you like. Is there something you'd like to share?
I played a lot of Tony Hawk, like an unhealthy amount of Tony Hawk.
Mm. You've you've 1000 G'd it, haven't you? I saw your video series. So that means you got to the level 100 as well, I assume.
Yeah. It's not fun.
No.
So there's some skill based stuff in there. Getting all the gaps isn't too easy, but it's not too hard either. Then there's the hard get there challenges, which I would say are, for the average gamer going to be next to impossible. And for the average Tony Hawk fan, they're just going to be pretty difficult in general. But then level 100 is just like a grind like no other. And, you can get creative with the turbo controller and stuff like that, but it doesn't make it any easier to swallow. Other than that, like, definitely looking forward to Crash Bandicoot 4, which is coming out in a couple days as we're recording, or maybe already out if you're listening. And I've just been kind of taking time to go back into my back catalog. I've been playing a lot of like random old games like Plague Tale Innocence, Battletoads, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 campaign remastered, just random stuff like that. I've been just trying to scrub through some of my game library so I can just delete some games that I've had on my mind before the Series X comes out.
Yeah. Now I want to ask you about this Battletoads because I did drop in on a stream a week or two ago. You did on this, and in fact, just as a side subject, you had a fantastic line in there. This is why I love listening to intelligent people talk because you never know what's going to come out. And something, I think there was some person in the chat there that is going berserk this month on Gamerscore or something. And you made this comment. It's very apropos. It works on both sides for trophy hunters and achievement hunters. And it was to the effect that if you have more gamer score than me, you need to get a life. And if you have less gamer score than me, you're trash. Which it's beautiful, isn't it?
It's one of my favorite quotes. I stole that from someone, but you just gotta love it. You got it because it's so true. Like anytime someone has less gamer score than you, they're always telling you have no life.
Yeah,
and then kind of works the other way around, where if they have less gamer score than you, then they're trash.
Yeah,
it's too easy.
It is too easy. So I thought that. But one of the games that I want to ask you about, because I know you did a guide for it recently as well, and one of our Patreon supporters, that one Seagull, has recently just used it, and he said it was fantastic. So he said he wanted
for which game was that?
This
Sorry,
is for Tell Me Why. The Don't Nod game. So he wanted me to thank you for that. But I wanted to ask.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, of course. I wanted to ask you about that game. If we're okay to talk about it for a little while, if you don't mind. So Don't Nod game here, the French developer, obviously from Life is Strange series. Did you like the game, I suppose? And how do you find that push away from standard gameplay into such a highly narrative, almost passive experience at times?
Yeah, just a different mindset going into the game. I actually really liked it. The one thing I hated about it was the fact that there were like multiple different endings, and making guides for it was like a truly awful experience. But as a game, it was pretty good. It was like 7-8 hours, told a pretty interesting story, interesting characters. I liked it a lot. I thought it would have like maybe I thought more people would have like maybe talked about it or played it. I feel like it kind of went under the radar. I don't think it was as good as like Life is Strange season 1 back in the day when that came out. But in my opinion, Tell Me Why was better than like Life is Strange 2 and Before the Storm. And I really liked the idea, like they were all the ideas they were exploring there. It kind of went with a lot of like their past ideas, but they tried some new things. I wish they would try like even more new things though.
Mm,
Like I still felt like Tell Me Why was a little safe in terms of the mechanics of the game and whatnot.
mm,
But yeah, just like every gamer, like some days you feel like a shooter, some days you feel like whatever, an RPG. And for me, when I'm looking at videos, some days I just got to be prepared to sit down for a 2 hour story time, and some days I got to be prepared to be Iron Man.
mm. Yeah, no, look, I agree, and like there may be some light spoilers here, listeners. But look, if you're on the PlayStation, you can't experience this anyway unless you move to PC or Xbox at this stage. But perhaps down the track it will come across. But one of the interesting things, Maka, is that a lot of people they don't like this shift from Life is Strange 1 to 2 because it was getting more passive, it was getting more narrative heavy, and this game it goes further down that path hugely. So I'm sure it's going to be
Yeah.
divided for some people or whatever else, but. What interests me about this game was that perhaps I see Risk as a different perspective in this game from you here, but one of the things that I loved is, and I know this is in 1 and 2, but this I thought did it even better, is that there are times in the game where you can just stop, whether you lean on the bench or you sit down or whatever, and you can just time stops. And I think that immersion, level of immersion, is not in a lot of games. And it comes about in different ways, I suppose, but in this game, they ebb the music out or whatever else, and there's some amazingly beautiful vistas. And again, depending on how you interact with this game, I suppose how deeply you want to take it on, you almost need these breaks, I felt, to digest what is going on, because there's some pretty heavy shit in there, as the game goes on. And I really like that. I don't know, perhaps that's too much for you, or you just. I know that you're. I also read or heard recently that you're a cutscene skipper, so perhaps these moments don't appeal to you too much. But
not only am I a cutscene skipper, I also usually play on the easiest difficulty.
there's not
Now,
no
people
shame.
think this is pure blasphemy and it's because I'm bad at games,
Mm.
but it is strictly for being as efficient as possible for making videos.
Yeah, yeah. No. Look, there's no judgment there at all, of course. But one of the things that I liked about this game, and I know it's going to move into spoiler territory, but I do want to ask you here. Obviously, you've experienced all the endings because of your guide and stuff like this. But the game, to me, is really a story of perceptions. Obviously of how people, interact with, the character as they change, as they become trans, and they embrace that. And one of the issues, we've talked about it before, one of the issues I found was that it was a very abrupt change, in that the expectation for everyone else to accept it was very sudden within the game or whatever else. But then as the game goes on, and this is where we move into spoilers, so you perhaps want to jump this part, listeners, the final decision, or the final major decision, it's presented there by a flawed character, a hugely flawed character. The man, we'll tread very carefully here, I suppose. That tends to be the father figure, or is the father, I suppose here. Now, he's a flawed character, obviously, for the way that he's treated them or whatever else, but he presents the option to choose the truth or the non-truth. I suppose in your first playthrough, Maka, I'm interested, which way did you go? Did you believe his version of events, or did you hold fast to the needed reality, I suppose, of the twins?
So I went with the actual truth. It just felt like it would, like, as a game, as I was experiencing this as like art that was written, it just seemed like the right thing to do at the time.
Yes. Yeah. And I thought that was such a wonderful thing about that game, because if that decision was posed to you early on in the game, I would have gone the other way. But because of what you find out, particularly in the last chapter, I think, where it turns it on its head, it does such a wonderful job of pushing you so far to the other side, almost away from the favored characters, to be able to accept that truth from the flawed, character or whatever. I thought it was really well written. So I think from a narrative point of view, I really like the way that they're going. But I wonder, and I made this comment recently too on the Discord of our group there, that I think they're making less and less of a game, and they're making more and more of a movie, which again, I suppose depends on how you like your games. But interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. Although I feel like in many ways, Life is Strange 1 was the illusion of choice and a game, whereas at the end of the day, no matter who you talk to and how they played, it was kind of the same game for everyone. Whereas Tell Me Why is just kind of more in your face about it. It's just like, this is our game, and everyone's playing the same game. We're not trying to pretend that there's like 70 different ways to do this one section.
Yes, yes. They're embracing the Telltale model. Maybe more successfully, though. Yeah, no, look, I like that. Now, I know that I said an hour. Is it okay if I extend a little bit here? If
Yeah, we can
you're
go.
happy? Yeah, I'm not boring
Sure.
you. So let's move then to one of the great things about not really creating content in advance, Maka, and putting yourself out there is that nobody can throw stuff back in your face. But obviously, you're a very successful content creator, and I'm not going to do that here, so don't panic. But you did release this video at the start of the year. I can see your fingers very close to the eject button now. You did release this video at the start of the year, top 10 most anticipated games video. Now, I know some of these games have come out, so I think I just wanted to ask you whether you've played them and how you think they ranked against your expectation a little bit, and if you're happy to do that.
Sure. I also think it's very important that the preface is, in my anticipated games, I don't anticipate games just because I think they're going to be good always. A lot of the times I get excited by like Microsoft Flight Simulator was on there because I was excited about how the tech was going to change the game industry, not because I want to become a pilot in real life. And in a lot of ways, when I make that list, it's about more than just the game itself. But let's proceed.
You, sir, are a very frustrating guest, because that was one of the things I was going to play later on in this section about the technical movements forward. I had a feeling you were going to do that. You've taken the cards away from me, which I love. I think that's fantastic. But let's start from the top then. Half-Life Alyx, the VR game here from Valve.
Yeah.
Obviously you need it. You need to be a multimillionaire to play this game with all the requirements. Have you managed to get any time with this game?
Yeah.
I suppose?
So unfortunately, my plan for that game was to play it at the YouTube studio, but then this thing happened called COVID, and everything's been shut down. And I moved at like right as that game kind of came out, and just didn't have the money or even the space to play it. So I unfortunately had to skip it for a bit. Also, I was hoping to build up a tolerance to VR games because they can cause you a headache. I don't know if you know this, but I was trying to build up a little bit of a tolerance, and I didn't get to that part. And I thought jumping into that game was kind of spelling disaster for myself. So I didn't get a chance, but I've heard only amazing things about it.
Yes, look, I'm well familiar with the PSVR sick bucket. Although the VR on PC is much better, I understand. Okay, let's move to the next one. Now, this is a little selfish here. You actually, I didn't know this, but I'm a little jealous. You actually said in your video you'd actually spent some time with this game. So obviously the game's changed a lot. We're almost a year down the track, but it is coming out very shortly. It is the Watchdogs Legion. Are you still eager for this game?
I've played, I think, like 12 hours of it now, like different sections. Once at E3, once I think I went to London and I got to play it. I got to play the E3 build before E3 got canceled and they moved it to like a press build online and blah, blah, blah. I've played a lot of it. And I don't know. It seems like one of those games where you can just kind of get into it and get lost for like a long period of time. And sometimes I like that. Even if like every minute isn't the best minute of gameplay you'll ever experience, it is one of those games you can just kind of play and go. Like looking back, like, I still think it's a top 10 of the year contender. I don't know if I'm necessarily proud of putting it on my top 10 most anticipated games, but at the same time, I think it's kind of one of those maybe safer choices, and I don't regret it. But I don't know how good it'll be when it finally comes out and I get to actually experience it, like with the actual tutorial and introduction and story and stuff. It could be good. It could be okay. It could be bad. Who knows? I guess we'll see, right?
Yeah, that's right. And look, I'm not going to dig here because I don't know if you're under any NDAs or anything else. If you are, you can just avoid it completely. But, being a rapid game buyer, there's a lot of things coming out at that time in particular. Do you think perhaps I might be better to just wait on that one?
I would say it depends on I get that question a lot. Like, should I buy X or Y? And my question's always like, I don't know. If you are a millionaire, you probably should. Whereas if you struggle to buy yourself dinner on a daily basis, I would probably suggest you don't. So what we have on October 29th, and then a couple weeks later we have like Call of Duty, Cyberpunk, Valhalla, games like that. I would say it's different enough that if you like, I think there's a universe where you play Watchdogs Legions and you also play those games and you get completely different experiences from them.
Okay, so now the next one I wanted to ask you about here, Resident Evil 3, the remaster or whatever else. I played some of this. I assume you have played it or whatever else. You made
Nope.
Oh, you haven't played it. Oh.
No, it came out. It came out on the same day or same week as like 3 other games that I played instead. And then everyone was like, "Oh, this game sucks. It's awful." And then I looked into making guides, and it just didn't, like, the cards just didn't play.
No, look, I understand that. Then I saw you had Dying Light too. I know that's a big push for a lot of people. A lot of our listeners are very eager on that game, so we might
Mm-hmm.
might leave that there. Now, the next one is the one that interests me perhaps the most. You've played your cards early though, unfortunately, here, sir. The Flight Simulator by Microsoft. Now, as you said, you're not going to be a pilot. You don't have a depth. Thousands of hours in flight sims in the past, but what interests you is the technical developments in this game.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found staggering, actually, that you said, and maybe you can talk to this briefly because it's something that I'd never come across before, is that this is a massive game, hundreds of gigabytes, if not more. And rather than download everything because of the way that it works, it streamed a lot of the content. Is that sort of correct?
Yeah, I think the game's actually thousands of terabytes,
Sorry.
if I remember correctly. There's no way you're fitting it on a normal computer there at home. I always try to pick one game a year in my list that's just like the tech. Sometimes it bites me in the ass, like Crackdown 3. I had Crackdown 3 in my top 10 games list, anticipated games list for a couple years, and it was because Microsoft kept talking about all this like cloud destruction and all this crazy stuff they were going to apply to this game. That game sucked. It was not good. It wasn't. It was an awful game in a lot of different ways. But I think with Microsoft Flight Simulator, I said there would be a lot of tech there, and I stand by that statement. I think that game is like a literal work of art. It is a technical like achievement like no other. In a similar way to whether you think The Last of Us 2 is a good game or it's a bad game, the technical achievements that team accomplished in that game just blows my mind. And a lot of the same things apply to Microsoft Flight Sim there. Like, do I see a future where parts of a map have to be streamed in because the map is so big? Not necessarily. Do I see an application where having the actual time and weather of an airport in real life is going to be useful in a game? Not really. But seeing it all come together in that game is just an experience you can't find in any other game. And I think as someone who plays as many games as I do, that's where I find like excitement and fun is being able to experience something for the first time and it not be anywhere else in any other game. Making it snow in Montego Bay, Jamaica, and seeing how that, the snow builds on the beaches, it's you can't experience it in a different game the same way. The systems they have in it, the way the tech's integrated, it's so exciting, and then the game itself is just exceptionally well made. And I stand by that. That game's going to be my top 10 games of the year, and I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by it.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point you make, and you also went on to say about the weather being real time time. And I'm playing a lot of Forza Horizon 4 at the moment, and I know they do seasons, but they're based just on weeks or whatever.
Yep.
They're not dynamic seasons. And in the back of my mind, you can tell, Maka, I've been playing way too much of this game. In the back of my mind, I was looking out the window and I was like, it was raining here, and I was like, how cool would it be if I'm driving this Lego car at the moment and it was raining in the game? And I thought, it's probably not that far off. I mean, we had the golf club. I believe it was. I'm sure it would have been on Xbox as well, and they claimed that they were taking the wind off the actual courses at the time of playing. But I have a feeling they were probably preset, because it was a few years ago. But that idea, it is really, I think, the next level of immersion, perhaps especially for people that play simulators. I suppose in your fantasy games it doesn't matter, but in these sort of games, it's very exciting. That for me, I think.
Yeah, and I think the idea that, like, I'm not talking about converting a Bing map to a game world, but the idea that they're able to take this like enormous data set and make something out of it that is kind of automatic is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Now, look, I have to ask you about the next one because you must have turned on the PlayStation for this
Uh-oh.
one, or perhaps
Yeah.
you like many other people, you didn't. The Last of Us Part 2, you opened the door on it. Did you partake or not?
Yeah, I mean that game's a technical masterpiece in every which way, shape, or form. They knocked it out of the park with the graphics, the animation, the sound. Whether you like the story or not, whether you thought it was fair to the game world, like the game or the fans, sure, we can have that discussion all day, and we'll probably never all agree on a common thought there. But to say that everything going on in that game isn't like top notch, best in the world, quality, every studio wishes they could make games that good,
Mm.
from a technical standpoint. So I still stand by that game. Yeah.
That's a wonderfully compelling answer, Maka, but it doesn't tell me whether you enjoyed it yourself or not. So let's put aside the fact that it's a technical marvel or whatever else. Did you enjoy the actual game itself?
Yeah, I did, but I also really like stealth games, and in a
Yeah.
lot of ways, that game is a stealth game more than it's an action game.
Hmm.
I think people are kind of expected. I think it's one of those things where people had an expectation, and then that expectation wasn't met, and that's why they didn't enjoy themselves. I like to go in like as blind as possible and with as little expectations as possible, and generally you end up pleasantly surprised, unless it's the case of Crackdown 3, I guess. But yeah, I enjoyed my time there, but I also really like stealth games, and I enjoy like I generally I enjoy Naughty Dog games. I think everyone kind of does.
Hmm.
The story, sure, we can agree. I don't want to spoil it because I
Hmm.
still think people
Hmm.
are going to get around to it and maybe change their mind, and maybe with time we'll see everything a little differently.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think there was some disservices there done with the story. I think one of the biggest problems was with the expectations was the marketing. The marketing made it seem like you were going to play as Joel, and it made it seem like it was a continuation of the first game and whatnot. But we got something a lot different, and I think people didn't really expect that. But I would say it's still a contender for like game of the year. For in a lot of ways, maybe not for me. It's going to make my top 10 probably
Hmm.
for a lot of the reasons we talked about. But it's unfortunate that people didn't like it for one reason or another, and I kind of like that they at least took a risk on it, like the story wise. It would have been too easy to just do The Last of Us Part 1 again.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I look, I agree. I mean, it definitely says something. It's just whether you subscribe to that. I think, to be honest with you, I think a lot of it's tied up in the treatment of the character. I think that's why a lot of people have issues. But like we gravitate, we fan ourselves to whatever else, so that's understandable. We don't need to touch Cyberpunk because everybody else and their dog has, of course, Maka. But what I was
Oh, I do
thinking.
have something quick to say
Oh,
about
please.
Cyberpunk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, All right, it's gonna be very controversial. Get your fingers ready at the keyboard. I don't think Cyberpunk is gonna be as good as everyone says it's gonna be.
Well, that's coming from an RPG lover, isn't it?
Well, sure. I think everyone's expecting a 99 and 95 like game of the year. The Witcher 3.1 million. I think Cyberpunk is. I think it might not even review that well. I think we might see an 8 at the beginning of that Metacritic review score. We'll see though.
Yeah, we will. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because it's wonderful. Whatever they produce, whatever happens, it's wonderful to see a studio that basically probably has more money than they know what to do with in this situation, and they've also
Yeah.
taken the time. So whatever happens, at least they're coming from a good position. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, of course, there's always a mistake somewhere in lists. It's inevitable, and of course here you stumbled on Doom Eternal. So now having played that game, I assume, how do you feel? Do you think that was a worthy inclusion at number 2?
Oh yeah. Doom Eternal is the
Oh,
best shooter I
really?
played this year, hands down. That game's
Oh.
fucking awesome.
Really?
Did you
Okay.
not like it?
Look. I'm not a skilled gamer, Maka, but we're not here to talk about myself. It is a challenging game.
we figured it out.
They need it. Unfortunately, in that game, I started on medium, and then I was like, oh, okay, this is a bit tough. And then the next one, and then I got down to the easiest one. It was like Wolfenstein all over again. Down to the easiest one, I was like, wow, this game's not fucking around. So it was a bit much for me. But please tell me what you love about it.
Oh, I just love how like they just stripped everything. So again, this is coming from a guy who loves I skip cutscenes, right? I don't like stories. I don't like filler. That game is like my dream game. It's just gameplay all the time in your face. It doesn't care about why you're on Mars, or I don't even know where the game is. And I'm sure there's cutscenes. I skipped them all, by the way. But it is just a no BS shooter to shoot. Like, you don't even need a good reason. You're just shooting shit because it's bad and you're good, like, and that's what I liked about it. The shooting was phenomenal. It was a fast-paced game. It ran beautifully. It looked good. The audio was good. Oh, in every which way, I just thought that game was amazing.
Yes, yeah. Well, maybe just a little bit tough for a noob, but what can you do these days? Gamers are more skilled or whatever else. But I like that. Now, your number one here. Obviously, this game has been pushed, but there would have been no way to see that because it was looking like a launch title at that stage. Now, I don't know if you played. I believe there was a demo. Oh no, there was gameplay footage and all this sort of stuff, wasn't there? So I'm sure you're happy that it has been pushed to next year for more time.
For Halo Infinite?
Yeah, or happy as in not happy that you don't get to play it, but happy that they're investing the time into to make it a top quality product.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of like the COVID stuff's just getting in the way of them being able to reach certain goals that they probably want to reach. I don't think it's a unique problem to 343 either. But yeah, take whatever time you need, make the game as good as it's going to be. I think the way Halo the Master Chief Collection had to launch, where basically it was ass for the first X amount of years, and now people like it. I don't think you want to test people again with that same strategy. I think it's best case scenario is that Halo Infinite works as promised as it comes out. I think that's kind of the best idea. So I'm happy that they're taking their time. I'm happy that they're not pushing it, and I'm excited that we're going to get a better quality game because of it.
Yeah, I think that's well. So that's all you can really say. So look, I want to ask you as we wrap out here, and I didn't give you warning for this, but you'll be fine. Now that I'm slumming it as I suppose an achievement whore. Isn't it funny, listeners? You can take the trophy out of it, but you can never remove the whore out of the whore. So it's just the same game on a different system, I suppose, Maka, but it's a new system. So therefore, I need to ask: in the last year or two, what is the worst game for Gamerscore that you've played? What can I look forward to? What is the worst, or maybe one of the worst?
The worst game. I don't know if you'll have the privilege of playing. You're in Australia, right? So I don't think you'll have the privilege. I think it might be a region locked game, or it might actually be delisted completely now. There was a game called Scale X Trick, which is a brand of slot car racer, and in the U.S. markets, it was named Trax. Worst game I've ever played for Gamerscore, hands down, without a doubt. Like, I guess worst game that actually worked as intended. There were worse games that were just so broken pieces of mess that they don't even count necessarily. But that is the worst game that was like designed to be how you played it that I've ever played by a long shot. There's one button to press. You're either pressing gas or you're not pressing gas. The camera angles are awful. The tracks are awful. The audio's awful. The graphics are everything about it is the worst ever. The game, every time you finished a race, the game would lock up and you'd end up in an endless loading screen. When you were in first place, it said you were first, but when you were in second place, it said the number 2 and then ST. So they couldn't even make it say second. They made it say first, but with a 2 on it. It is a racing game. Yeah, it's a racing game with laps that doesn't have a lap counter. I made a video about this game. It's like 6 minutes long, and I just rip on it for 6 minutes. It is by far the worst game I've ever played, and I got the luxury of not only playing it in the UK version, but I also played the US version, so I got to play it twice.
Oh, well, look, it surprises no one, Maka, that was one of my first day one purchases, so that is on my system already. So
Have fun.
I look forward to that. Now, what about on the flip side though, as well? Because we can't finish on a negative. In the last year or two, doesn't necessarily have to be short and nasty in length or whatever, but one or two of the best gamer score games or trophy list or achievement lists, I should say, games.
Yeah, so there's actually quite a few. One that immediately comes to mind, and I know you guys did have this one on PlayStation. It was a game called The Gardens Between. It was a 1 to 2 hour completion puzzle game, and it was just phenomenal all the way through. You can follow a guide. I have one if you want it, but I would actually just recommend you play it, enjoy it, and then mop up after, probably. Another game that was actually in my game of the year list last year. It came to Xbox this year, though. It was a game called Sayonara Wild Hearts. Now, this is the most unique game you can play in the past couple of years, and it's amazing. You can watch gameplay, you can listen to me talk about it. None of this will portray the feeling you get when you first load this game up for the first time. It's just on a different level. It's a different game than anything you've ever played before, and definitely recommend that one. Although I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy. It's right around that 6 hour range. So, for some that's easy, for some that's way too hard. Game called Hyperdot was pretty good, right around that 5 hour mark. It is on Game Pass as well. I'd recommend that. Yeah, there's a lot of bad games though for Gamerscore, aren't they? If that's all I can think about in the last year that I played that was good.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Of course, listeners, if you haven't come across the Sayonara Wild Hearts, it is around a 6 hour completion, and that is 2 stacks on the PlayStation as well, the NA and the EU. It's very reasonably priced.
Yeah.
As well.
And then I can also give a quick shout out to a game that might not be the best game ever, but I think there's a lot of it has a good message to it, which is phenomenal. Half of the proceeds get donated to a good cause. Also cool. It's made by like one 17-year-old student. I believe she's from the UK. It's a game called Fractured Minds. As its own game, it's not the best game you'll ever play, but I think it stands for a lot, and I think the future is bright for that person who made that game. It won a lot of awards, and also the Bradwell Conspiracy, if I don't mind shouting that out real quick. 1 to 2 hours. It's a puzzle game that plays kind of like Portal, kind of like the Turing Test, something like that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I doubt there's too many people that haven't come across that Fractured Minds yet in the trophy hunting community. But if you haven't, it's and of course it's wonderful on the Xbox because that's 1000G, unlike on the Xbox on the PlayStation at 300 points. But that's a topic for another day. So look, Maka, I do want to thank you a lot for giving up your time. I know you're very busy or whatever else, but it's wonderful to talk to someone that is so immersed in a community that I'm very much on the outside of and don't fully understand yet. But I'm willing and happy to learn as we go. And it was also wonderful because last time you joined us a year or so ago, we talked more about your content creation, which everyone knows you for. But it was wonderful today to talk some games and just your feelings about everything. So I do thank you so much for your time. Now, if there is a PlayStation gamer living under a rock and they do want to find you, what's the best way to do that and follow you?
You can hit me up on youtube.com/Maka91 Productions. Maybe on Twitch, twitch.tv/Maka91 Productions. Follow me on Twitter or Instagram, wherever you want. Honestly, if you watch, I would love that. If you don't, it's okay too. I make game guides. Sometimes they'll help you. Sometimes I'll be covering games that you're not playing. But hopefully you stumble on the channel once or twice. And if you do, consider subscribing.
Yeah, and look, I'm sure many of the listenership already has. So, as I said, once again, thanks so much for giving up your time today, Maka. Congratulations on becoming a Hall of Famer. The whole PlayStation community is jealous, of course, but well deserved, I think. Thank you, sir.
Yep, thanks for having me.
So there you go, listeners. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Maka from Maka91 Productions. If you're not familiar with his work, all his details are in the show notes. Go check him out on YouTube. He does some wonderful video guides. In fact, he's one of the masters, I think we'd all agree, of the video guide genre. He's also a wonderful Twitch streamer. You're guaranteed to have a good time there. Check him out if he's on, if that's your sort of thing. Now, I know it's pretty appropriate to have this episode this week because we've also got people in all sorts of competitions within the community at the moment. We've got our Push2Plat competition, of course, running, and I will update that in the next week or two, as I know we're getting quite a few people now getting close to the 5 completions. Of course, also on the True Trophies and the True Achievements side, we have the team and the individual events. It's like the GT, something SC event. I know it's massive. I know it's massive on the Xbox side, but look, it's great to see that the PlayStation's having another go at it on this side with True Trophies, but this time on a trophy difference system. So I think it's much fairer, and it will stop the spammers. Although we'll have to see, I suppose. Now, why don't we shuffle across to the Platinum shoutouts, of which there are many this week to get through. Of course, if you want a Platinum shoutout, and why wouldn't you, then jump into the free-to-join PS4 community, the Push2Plat Platinum Club, or drop your picture if you like, drop your little comments about the game in the Discord in the appropriate thread, which is all in the show notes. So let's start off today with Mr. Tam, number 95, Danganronpa 1-2 Reload. Another super quick one at 1 year and 10 months. I like the pace that you move, sir. We're very similar. I don't think you're an aged gentleman yet, but that's nothing to be laughed at. 1 year and 10 months is quite quick, I think I will beat you on that time for sure. This game was a lot of fun. Solving the murders was always really intriguing and creative, and the characters are all interesting too. Chica's best girl. I apologize if I butchered the name there. But that's a wonderful game. If you haven't played it, it's absurdly Japanese in its deaths, in investigations, and some wonderful lines. It's great. Nameless 600, a recent guest where we talked all things Madden, his wonderful trophy guide writing, and gaming as well. And he's here with number 466, Warriors Akori 3 PS3. Decided to go back and finish this. It's a solid game if you like Dynasty Warriors, but the grind on the Platinum is obnoxiously long. Those games terrify me, sir, but it's wonderful. I think we talked about it. It's wonderful to see that you went back and completed it. Next up, Boston 10, George. You couldn't make this up, could you? Wonderful music selection here too, George. Number 185, Drive Club. 66 trophies and only at 37% completion. That must really irk your goat, sir, I imagine. Glad it's delisted now. There is no pressure to 100%. Oh, well, you've proven me wrong. Although I'm sure that'll get under your skin, that 37%, and just drive you slowly insane. Perhaps even push you towards the side of the X. We'll have to wait and see. Although I think you're holding out pretty hardcore there. MZ Nitro, number 19, Mafia 2 Definitive Edition. To say it had glitches or issues would be an understatement, but even through all that, it was still reminded me of how much fun I had on it when it first came out on PS3. I'm glad I was able to at least plat this one for now, although I still need to do the DLC for 100%. That's wonderful, and I've just recently started the Mafia remake on the X, and it's really good. I know there's been a lot of whinging about Mafia 2 and 3 lately, but the remake is excellent, so I hope, if you're not too scarred, you consider that in the future. I'm Starling on your bro, number 227, Mad Max. This was fun, but 72 hours to do a 7-hour story due to the bloated world got old. This has to have the most fluff of any game, especially with all the rehashed assets polluting the quite literal sandbox. I got a get rich quick scheme. I should start a service resigning my 190 out of 191 scavenger locations with the final one untouched for all the sad saps who have it glitched due to their negligence. Oh, sir, that is a tough low blow. Of course, it's 100% true in my case. Maybe when the game came out, it was underrated, but in 2020, it's just nothing special in any aspect. It's true, isn't it? It's very long, unfortunately, for what should be a much shorter game. I think 7 hours is a bit of a stretch, but you're on the right track there. Vigilant Crow, Platinum 36 War Groove. I finally finished a game that wasn't directed towards kids. Groovy. Well, look, I don't think that is directed towards kids at all. I imagine that's another massive grind, so probably an ultra rare, knowing you. So well done. Wonderful addition to the cabinet. And then finally today, oh no, look, there's a whole nother page. We're going to be here for a while, listeners. Zuche, number 49, Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls. That's a massive, massive game. Dino Roar, number 1250, MotoGP 17. You are motoring along, so no pun intended. That's crazy. Remember, you weren't that long ago on 1,000, now already 1250. That's amazing. Well done. I love this series. It never disappoints me despite the minimal changes between the years. Managerial mode was a nice addition to this year's version. Trophy guide also created whilst playing and is available on dex.exe. And he's done it in capitals, so I don't mess it up. Well done. So that's wonderful. I'm glad that you love this series, because I'm a big fan too. I sort of sidestepped, if you like, or got taken out by MotoGP 19 because of those difficulty trophy. But I jumped back on the wagon in 20. It's a wonderful game. It's good to have a racing fan amongst us as well. Christ Supremacy. It's a wonderful name, so we're going to have some fun with that, I can tell you. Number 1, his first plat, so it's a massive milestone. Congratulations, sir. Spyro the Dragon. It's a classic pick as well. Teresa, Theme Park Simulator. This game was a roller coaster of emotion, from bored to frustrated, angry and confused at times. What a ride. Look, I'm glad you got some value for your money in this game. For me, all this was an AFK plat. Much like most of my lists, but at least it sounds like you got something out of it. And it didn't glitch, which, considering this game, that's quite an achievement, I think. I bet you enjoy your wallet being $15 US lighter now. But anyway, it is what it is. Ed the Shed 2014, number 130, Birthday of Midnight EU stack, fun platinum and a good addition to the series. It is. It's really good. It's probably a little bit easier than the other ones, but maybe a little bit longer because of the 50 levels. I don't know, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm sure you'll do many of the stacks. We're lucky there are plenty, all 4, I believe, to entertain ourselves with sub 1 hour plat, of course. And finally today, it's apropos we finish with somebody doing something on the Xbox, I think. Redbeard Rick, who plays everything though, of course. Surviving Mars 1000 gamer score. Congratulations, sir. It's a hell of a glitch, isn't it? A hell of a glitch with those mods. Tracks the Train Set Game 1500 gamer score, which, well done, sir. These are all staples of the Xbox spam life. And Minecraft 2600G, which probably is done in a similar way to Surviving Mars, I imagine. So well done. So it's wonderful to see that you're partaking in the gamer score. I believe you are leading us all this month over there. So it's great. It's great to see. Look, listeners, I think that is enough for today. It's been a very enjoyable episode, but I think the games are calling me. I hope you're having a wonderful week. If you're entering into events, if you're doing some sort of crazy leapfrogging still, I hope it all works out. I hope you're having a blast. I hope perhaps you're even making some new friends along the way. Be well, be safe. May the trophies fly every which way and land on your own account. Catch us soon. Push2Plat podcasts are conceived, written and edited by CJ Anderson in Adobe Audition. YouTube upload handled by Repurpose.io. Music licensing by Artist.io. Push2Plat would like to thank all our Patreon supporters, with special mention to our Patreon producers Zador VP, Redbeard Rick, Ready to eBay and MZ Nitro. Without your support, this show would cease to exist. If you would like to say hi, jump into the Discord in the show notes or on Twitter at Push2Plat. If you're interested in supporting the show, then jump on Patreon, the Push2Plat Patreon, where you can find more information on how to support us and to allow us to continue to bring wonderful guests and topics from around the world.